I love doing this, and it's really part of what keeps my fire going is to be inspiring, be creative. This is really my home. This is everything I ever wanted in my life is all here in Virginia and DC area.
The quad god, Olympic gold medalist, the greatest jumper in figure skating history. But when Ilya Malinin stood in front of a group of elementary school students, they didn't ask him about his gold medal. They asked him about the moment he failed, the moment he fell on the biggest stage in the world. His response was so honest, so powerful, that it may have taught those children a lesson worth more than Olympic gold itself. Imagine being a fifth-grade student sitting inside an ice arena when suddenly an Olympic gold medalist walks straight toward you. Not on a television screen, not in a viral highlight clip. Right there in front of you, wearing a Team USA jacket, smiling and asking for your name. For a group of children in Southeast Washington, D.C., that moment became reality. And what they heard that afternoon was something many adults spend a lifetime trying to understand. Some people spend thousands of dollars attending motivational seminars, reading self-help books, and chasing advice from experts, yet still leave searching for answers. These kids received something far more valuable completely free on an ordinary Thursday afternoon from someone who had just lived the lesson himself. At just 20 years old, Ilya Malinin is already living a life most athletes only dream about. He is a full-time university student, one of the most dominant figure skaters in the world, and now an Olympic gold medalist. But around the skating community, people often call him by another name, the Quad God. It is a nickname he earned, not one that was created by a marketing team or social media campaign. It comes from what he does every time he steps onto the ice. Quadruple jumps that many elite skaters are afraid to attempt even during practice sessions are routine for him. Malinin performs them under pressure, under bright lights, in front of judges, cameras, and millions of viewers around the world. And somehow, he makes the impossible look normal. Watching him skate can feel like watching someone negotiate with gravity and win. As if the laws of physics are merely suggestions he occasionally chooses to ignore. But there is something about Ilya Malinin that highlight videos often leave out. At the biggest moment of his individual career, he fell. During the men's free skate at the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan Cortina, the athlete known worldwide as the Quad God hit the ice. The skater famous for accomplishing things nobody else could do made a mistake on the biggest stage imaginable. And one of the elementary school students sitting in that arena in Southeast DC wasn't afraid to ask about it. Not carefully, not cautiously, just honestly the way children do. What happened when you fell? The room went quiet. Everyone waited to hear how an Olympic champion would answer. Malinin didn't hesitate for a second. He didn't look uncomfortable. He didn't avoid the question. He didn't offer a polished media response. Instead, he gave an answer that carried more weight than any medal around his neck. You learn a lot more from losing than you do from winning. That was it. No lengthy speech, no dramatic build-up, no motivational slogan designed for social media, just a simple truth from someone who had experienced both triumph and disappointment on the world's biggest stage. And because he said it so honestly, it hit harder than any inspirational quote ever printed on a classroom wall. Think about hearing those words when you're only 8 or 9 years old. Most children grow up believing that success is everything and failure is something to avoid. Winning gets celebrated, losing gets forgotten. But here stood an Olympic champion holding a gold medal while telling them that the lessons from falling mattered more than the moments of victory. That is not a cliché when it comes from someone who has lived it. That is proof. That is experience. That is a person showing you the scars from the journey and explaining why those scars helped make him who he is today. The visit took place at Fort DuPont Ice Arena, a public skating rink located in one of Washington, D.C.'s most underserved communities. The students came from C.W. Harris Elementary School. For many of them, this was far more than a field trip or a fun afternoon outside the classroom. It was an opportunity to meet someone who grew up nearby. Someone who understood where they came from. Someone who could have gone anywhere in the world after becoming an Olympic champion, but chose to come back and spend time with them. And when Malinin spoke about home, his words carried even greater meaning. He told the students that the Virginia and Washington, D.C. area is where his heart is. It is home. Everything he has ever wanted, he said, is right here, not somewhere more famous, not somewhere with brighter lights, not somewhere with more attention. Right here, that message may seem simple, but for the children listening, it was powerful. When someone who has reached the highest level of achievement looks at a community and proudly calls it home, it changes how people see themselves. It tells those kids that where they come from is not a disadvantage. It tells them they do not need to leave behind their identity to accomplish extraordinary things. It tells them that greatness is not found somewhere else. Sometimes it begins exactly where you are. Throughout the visit, Malinin didn't rush through the event or simply pose for photographs. He genuinely spent time with the students. He walked around the arena, he answered questions, he shook hands, he listened to stories, he took pictures, he posed for selfies with students, teachers, and staff members. Most importantly, he made people laugh. At one point, he shared what he described as the strangest and most surreal moment of his entire Olympic experience. And surprisingly, it had nothing to do with standing on the podium or receiving a gold medal. It was something else entirely. Something that reminded everyone in the room that even Olympic champions can still be amazed by moments they never expected. It wasn't the standing ovation. It wasn't hearing the crowd erupt after years of sacrifice finally paid off. It wasn't even the moment he realized he had achieved the dream he had been chasing his entire life. The most unbelievable moment of Ilya Malinin's year came somewhere completely unexpected. It happened when he walked into an event and saw legendary rapper and entertainment icon Snoop Dogg wearing a shirt with his face on it. Yes, his face. Malinin laughed as he told the story. He admitted he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He said it was absolutely insane. He never expected one of his idols to be walking around wearing merchandise featuring him, and he described it as the most mind-blowing experience he had all year. The moment instantly sent the room into laughter. The students loved it. And honestly, who wouldn't? But beneath the laughter was something far more important. For a few minutes, the Olympic champion stopped being an untouchable superstar and became something much more relatable. He became a regular 20-year-old young man who was still capable of being starstruck. Think about that for a second. The athlete who has amazed millions with jumps nobody else can perform was standing there excited because he met someone he admired. That moment mattered. Because inspiration only works when people can actually connect with you. If he had stood there acting larger than life, the students might have admired him, but because he showed them who he really was, they connected with him, and connection is what turns a memorable afternoon into a life-changing one. Throughout the event, Malinin never tried to present a perfect version of himself. He wasn't performing, he wasn't reading from a script, he wasn't trying to look impressive, he simply showed up as himself. And because of that, every lesson he shared carried more weight. The conversation became even more interesting when he revealed something many people never expected to hear from an Olympic champion. He told the students he is currently studying fashion design and photography at George Mason University, not sports management, not business administration, not something directly connected to skating. Fashion design, photography, creative fields that have nothing to do with landing quadruple jumps. Why? Because he is curious. Because he enjoys learning, because he refuses to limit himself to one identity. That revelation may have been one of the most valuable lessons of the entire afternoon. Too often people believe they have to choose a single path and stay inside it forever. Malinin showed the students the opposite. He showed them that excellence in one area doesn't mean you stop exploring others. Being the best figure skater in the world doesn't prevent you from being interested in art, creativity, design, or photography. In fact, it may make those passions even more important. Then he encouraged the students to try new things, to explore different interests, to stay curious. But the reason his advice mattered wasn't because it sounded good. It mattered because he was living it. That is the difference between ordinary advice and genuine wisdom. Advice is something people tell you. Wisdom is something people prove. And every word Malinin spoke came with proof attached. Looking toward the future, he has openly talked about wanting to become an actor, a model, and someone who inspires people around the world. But what made this visit so powerful is that he wasn't waiting for some future moment to begin that mission. He was already doing it, right there, inside a public ice rink in Southeast Washington, D.C., surrounded by elementary school students. He wasn't speaking to a sold-out arena. He wasn't standing on a massive stage. He wasn't appearing in front of millions of television viewers. He was simply spending time with a group of children who may never forget that afternoon. And for some of those kids, that visit could become one of the defining memories of their childhood. Years from now, they may not remember every detail from a school lesson, but they will remember sitting across from an Olympic champion who told them the truth. They will remember hearing that failure can teach more than victory. They will remember learning that success doesn't require perfection. They will remember discovering that even heroes get nervous, make mistakes, attend classes, chase new interests, and sometimes get starstruck by their idols. Most importantly, they will remember that someone who reached the highest level of his sport came back home and spent time with them. That matters. Because events like this often receive a few headlines before disappearing from the news cycle. The cameras leave, the articles stop being shared, the attention moves elsewhere, but the impact remains. Somewhere in that school is a student who asked a difficult question and received an honest answer. Somewhere in that crowd is a child who laughed at the Snoop Dogg story and suddenly realized that success can still be fun. Somewhere in that arena is a future athlete, artist, teacher, entrepreneur, or leader who walked away believing that bigger dreams might actually be possible. And perhaps the most beautiful part of the entire day is that the inspiration wasn't flowing in only one direction. Malinin himself admitted that visits like these help keep his fire alive. That means those students inspired him too. They reminded him why the journey matters. They reminded him who he represents. They reminded him that success becomes far more meaningful when it can be shared. That is what real community looks like. Not a publicity event, not a photo opportunity, not a carefully planned media appearance. Just a young man from Virginia sitting on the ice with a group of kids, sharing his experiences honestly and giving them something far more valuable than an autograph. Hope. Some people spend their entire lives wondering if they will ever make a difference in someone else's story. On an ordinary Thursday afternoon, Ilya Malinin walked into a neighborhood ice rink and became unforgettable to an entire school. And in many ways, that may be the most meaningful gold medal of all. One that isn't hung around your neck. One that isn't displayed in a trophy case. One that lives forever in the lives you inspire.